Well, it finally happened. My Pontiac Torrent that I have been driving since about 2018 has been surprisingly reliable during that time. It finally broke down. I've known that it's had a problem for a while. It started overheating back in December. And at first I didn't think too much of it. It wasn't too bad, just every once in a while it would seem to overheat. It seemed to be a little low on coolant, so I topped it off and kept going. I was thinking about driving it down to a friend's place to look at it, but that drive is about 4 hours long and I wasn't sure that the car would make it that far. And also, it didn't seem to be too much of an issue as long as I was staying in town. However, as spring came and eventually turned into summer, and the days got hotter and hotter, this overheating problem got worse and worse. Eventually, I decided that it might just be that the cooling system needs to be bled. There's air bubbles in the cooling system that need to be removed. So I tried that, and it didn't work. Eventually it got to the point where I could only drive from my house to work and then back at the end of the day, but without it overheating too bad. However, one day I forgot my ID badge, so I got to work and then had to turn around and go back home, and that round trip going, to work and immediately turning around and going back, that was just a little too much. The car overheated, it went into limp mode and wouldn't drive above like 5 miles an hour. So I had to pull over onto the side of the road and let the car cool off and call a friend of mine to try and get the car taken to a garage. We were able to get it to the garage, and it took them a while to figure out what was wrong with it. They had figured that there was a coolant leak somewhere, but they couldn't figure out where the coolant was leaking from. Eventually, they figured out that it was the lower manifold gasket. So my Pontiac has a V6 engine. This is the front of the engine, and these are the cylinder banks here and here. And between the cylinder banks there is a manifold. This is the intake manifold. It's where air goes in and then eventually goes to the valves and goes into the cylinders for the combustion to occur. The gasket that connects the manifold to the cylinder heads and to the block down here, this gasket here was leaking. And the weird thing is that it only leaks when the car was up to operating temperature and then is shut off, and as it's cooling down, it starts leaking. But once the car is completely cool, it stops leaking. I'm not entirely sure why that was. It's something in the way the gasket was broken. But anyway, that was the problem, and the solution was $2,500. Getting down to this gasket, taking the heads off of the car would have been super easy after we got down and got this gasket off. That is how much we had to take off of this car in order to get to this gasket. So the garage, they were not price gouging me. That is the fair labor cost for the amount of labor that goes into this job. I couldn't quite afford that, and so I was luckily able to fix the car myself using my mechanical knowledge and a friend's garage. To replace this gasket and do a little bit of other maintenance as long as we had the car torn apart so much, it took 2 people, my friend and I, 22 hours. So having a labor rate of $50 an hour, which is about average for a mechanic, that means that the labor alone would have cost about $2,200, and that is right in line with the quote that I received. Add on top of that all the parts. So the parts to actually fix that would have been right around $500, but I decided to do a little bit of extra maintenance maintenance as long as we had the engine torn apart so much. So actually the parts cost closer to $600. So we know that the garage actually quoted a pretty good deal. The disassembly started out really well. I've replaced the alternator, I've done a bunch of other things, so that initial part of the disassembly went really well. It wasn't until we got down to the bare intake that we started to run into our first problem. Okay, so far we've taken the plastic off the engine, got the EGR valve disconnected, need to disconnect the top of the air filter, need to take the alternator out, need to remove all the components, just disconnect everything here. Right now we are taking this shield off right here to get to the top of the radiator. So our first problem came when we didn't have the proper tool to remove the serpentine belt. This is a universal serpentine belt tool, and I did not have this when we first started working. Now, I've had to remove the serpentine belt from this car before, and I was able to use a breaker bar that I had, but I didn't have that here. So we just kind of were able to eventually slip the belt off, and we figured that was good enough, and we'd deal with it when it came time to put the belt back on. Eventually, when it did come time to put the belt back on, I decided to just go out and buy a serpentine belt tool. This tool is very helpful when you're working with any kind of sideways mounted engine, because the serpentine belts on those sideways mounted engines are typically hard to get to, so this tool makes it a lot easier. And I know that I will be using this tool again. The Cobalt, the Toyota Matrix, a bunch of other vehicles can use this tool, so it's good to have in my collection, so I didn't mind buying one. This car has a two-piece intake manifold, so you remove the upper manifold, and then there is a lower manifold, and sandwiched between the two is the fuel rail. This was my first time working on an engine that has fuel injection. Most of the stuff that I've worked on before has been carbureted. So it was my first time dealing with fuel injectors and a fuel rail and stuff, so I was lucky enough to have someone with me who is more experienced working with fuel injected things. Although really it isn't that hard, you just have to unplug the injectors and then pull them out of the block. And the important part is when you're putting it all back together, you need to check to make sure that it's not leaking before you button everything else back up, because otherwise there might be a fuel leak that you might not see until much later. So don't worry, when we put everything back together, we checked to make sure that there weren't any fuel leaks before starting the vehicle up. Here I am unbolting the coil pack, it takes the place of a distributor, and it makes sure that the right cylinder has a spark when it needs to. And I simply unbolted it and left it in place because we were fighting around it the entire time. If we had removed it, it would have been so much easier. But I didn't. I unbolted it and kept it in there. I tried to get it as out of the way as possible, but it didn't work. In the future, if I were to do this again, I would definitely just remove the entire thing. It would have made my life so much easier. General Motors engineers made this job a lot harder than it needed to be. To remove the lower intake manifold, we had to remove the valve covers because each half of the valve cover bolts to the cylinder head and the other half bolts to the lower intake manifold. We also had to remove the rocker arms and push rods in order to remove the gasket that actually needed to be replaced because the push rods thread through the gasket. This seems to be a very poor design choice. But at least this is a modern car, so we didn't have the extra tedious step of clearancing all the valves. The positioning of the rocker arms is set based on their torque, so as long as you torque the bolts to their proper settings, you are done. So, finally done. Well, halfway done. There it goes. What is it hooked on there? Can you see?
It looks like there might be a bracket. Right there, I think. Worst location.
Oh.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, one more bolt. Okay, so these are the gaskets we actually need to replace. So we do need to remove these push rods. So we just undo, just loosen up here, and then these valves, the rocker arms, will loosen up. We can pull out the push rods. These push rods are different sizes for the different positions, so we need to just keep track of which ones go where. And then we just replace the gasket. The issue is the gasket threads through the push rod, so like it goes underneath on this side and it goes over it on this side, so you have to remove the push rods. There's no way around it. But that is pretty much everything on the teardown, so now we just clean it up, new gaskets on, and then put everything back together. So when I was looking this up online, they said it was a 16-hour job. So if we can get it done in half that time, I think we're the greatest mechanics ever.
We'll see.
So the old gasket that came from GM was all, well, actually, I think that is metal in there. But
It's probably just thicker.
yeah. So this is the new replacement gasket. Well, the two of them, one for each side. So we just put on new gaskets and then put everything back together. To do this job, the first thing we had to do was drain all of the coolant out of the engine and out of the radiator. And I didn't film this because I thought it would be very simple. You just remove the drain plug, let it all drain out, and then you put the drain plug back in. However, when we went to remove the drain plug, it was this very odd plastic drain plug. And we found out when we went to put the drain plug back in that when we removed the drain plug, we actually broke it. So the drain plug is designed to push in, and then you twist it 90 degrees to lock it in place. We didn't realize that. We figured that it screwed in, so we were trying to unscrew it, and it broke off those tabs that it locks in with. So we ended up having to buy a new drain plug, and that actually delayed us for a day because we couldn't get the part that day. We had to wait for it and get it the next day. In the future, for all cars that do not have a metal drain plug on the radiator, I am going to simply drain it with the lower radiator hose and not bother with the drain plugs on the radiator, because you just never know exactly how it is supposed to fit and supposed to be undone, and so they're just too easy to break them. So I'm just going to stick with draining by removing the lower radiator hose. I was able to find a great online resource, which I am linking below this video in the description, that had all the instructions on how to do this repair, and it also had a lot of the torque values that we needed to know. Unfortunately, a lot of these torque values were listed in inch pounds, and so we needed to convert them to foot pounds. It was a simple matter of dividing by 12. Some of the torque values listed a value in inch pounds or foot pounds, and it says to go to that value and plus a certain amount of degrees. That is the amount of degrees that you turn the torque wrench past where that inch-pound value is. This is very annoying when you don't own a specific type of torque wrench called an angular torque wrench, which is able to measure the angle, and that is how you are able to precisely get that angle correct. We were able to get the angle approximately right using a torque wrench, some cardboard, and an angle drawn on that cardboard. It's not ideal, but it is good enough to get in the general ballpark. I really wish that companies would just give you the one number in inch pounds or foot pounds so that you can use a normal torque wrench and not have to have so many specialty tools when you're trying to work on your own car. Well, we had the engine torn apart. We decided to do some more maintenance items that were easier when the engine is half taken apart. We were able to change all the spark plugs, which probably haven't been changed since the car was new, because getting to where the spark plugs are located is virtually impossible unless you are taking off a ton of the upper half of the engine anyway. So we changed all 6 spark plugs. We also put in a new thermostat that is slightly cooler than the thermostat that it had from factory, so it opens up when it is cooler, and that keeps the engine just a little bit cooler. It's a good thing to do if you drive your car a lot in Texas or anywhere where there is a lot of heat. We also replaced the thermostat housing because I was informed that that could be a potential problem later on, and so it's better to address that as long as you've already gotten the car torn apart. We also flushed the coolant. We put in a new coolant overflow reservoir, and we did an oil change as well. All these maintenance things were not necessary for what we were doing, but they were a good idea to do since we were already putting all this work into the car anyway. Oh. They make it idiot-proof just for me. Okay.
Nope. That's something else.
Oh, that one's probably an alternator.
Ah, yeah.
The car did not seem that loud before.